Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Macola 10, a single solution to automate, manage, and grow your business. My name is Julie Blankenship, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Macola. We know your time is valuable, so we appreciate you sharing some of it with us today. Now, with that said, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today's webinar. Our first presenter is Nick Mears, Senior Product Marketing Manager, who has 10 plus years experience in technology B2B, B2C, and public-private sector marketing. Nick's background also includes a tenure with both marketing and PR firms, serving clients in technology and software, healthcare, financial, and manufacturing, including companies such as Abbott Laboratories, Eli Lilly, Nationwide, and Ashland Chemicals. Next, I'd like to introduce our other presenter for today's webinar, Steve Featherston, Senior Business Consultant, Pre-Sales. He has been with Exact for 4 years. Prior to that, Steve managed the implementation of Macola for many of Exact's customers. Prior to Exact, for 16 years, he worked in 3 different companies, all using Macola. Before this, Steve owned his own business for 22 years in the consumer electronics industry. With that said, I'd like to pass this over to Nick Mears.
Well, thank you, Julie, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate you spending some of your time with us this afternoon. So let's get this started, and we're really going to try to answer 3 questions here. First, who uses Macola? Second, why is Macola different? And third, how can Macola help you? Let's start off with who uses Macola. So the companies who typically use Macola are primarily in either manufacturing or in distribution. So these companies could be just about anything, especially those that are in what we like to think of as a discrete or process manufacturing. They can be metals, they can be household goods, they can be food and beverage, injection, molding, they could be industrial machinery. You get the idea. But basically, if you're in that space creating something in a manufacturing environment, then you're probably a good candidate for us. And we have thousands of customers who have used Macola just to solve those needs. Now, from a size perspective, we typically target what we think of as a small, medium-sized business space. So for example, that could be anywhere from like 20 users, which would be a small company, all the way up to 10,000 employees. But this doesn't mean you buy 20 licenses for 20 people. Usually what we see are companies buying anywhere from about 25% to maybe up to a high of about 50%. So if an organization has 100 employees, maybe they're buying 25, 35, or 50 licenses. And of course, we're happy to explain what those licenses do and how you might want to implement them in your business. Geography, from a geography perspective, we have our footprint, but really we're global. So we have customers from the US and Latin America to Europe and Asia and Africa even, and we're quickly expanding. So Macola's been around for a while. In fact, over 40 years. And over 8,000 customers in that time have relied on Macola to run their businesses. Also, Macola 10 is what we like to call inclusive and scalable, meaning that you get more functionality for a better ROI, and because it's scalable, something you can grow into quickly. We'll talk more about the scalability of Macola 10 later on. So who uses Macola? Now, we think about who relies on Macola, and well, all kinds of companies do. So we have a few here. And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this slide because although it has some companies that you really might recognize, at the same time, it's not necessarily representative of all of our customers because a lot of our customers are ones that you probably wouldn't recognize at all. They're companies that are behind the scenes or companies that feed into the supply chain. So maybe you've heard of Simple Green or White Castle, but you haven't heard of the other 95% of our customers who make something for the supply chain. So we love it because people recognize some of them, but it's not always the most representative of all of our customers. So who benefits from Macola 10? Well, anyone who's experiencing any one of these 4 pain points. So first off, any organization that has siloed information. Maybe you have information that exists solely in different teams or in different departments, none of which is known or even accessible across the organization. Second, information everywhere. This is when you have information and key data that resides in offices, on the shop floor, on non-shared computers, or worse of all, it could even be not on a computer at all. It could be in different individuals' heads. In this case, it's not software. It's what they call a sneakerware, where you have to walk down the shop floor to find out the answers to your questions. So third here, if you're seeing lost tasks, Macola can be really helpful for and extremely valuable for those organizations who may not have automation, or if there's not an integrated solution that currently oversees and ensures everything is on track, that tasks are not slipping between the cracks. A lot of times these tasks at first may seem insignificant. This is why they were overlooked in the first place. But it's amazing the amount of chaos one missed task can have on an entire process. And then finally, the fourth area is unknown responsibilities. You have people asking who's following up on a key responsibility. Some say not me. Others don't even know what you're talking about. So if you're experiencing any of these issues, then you could benefit from Macola 10. And speaking of benefits, you might be interested to see what we like to say are some of the key benefits of Macola 10. So first off, you have improved visibility and control of enterprise processes. Second, reduced costs and increased revenue, reduced errors and improved accuracy, bottlenecks, spotting them, and redundancies, increasing efficiencies, reducing manual effort and paperwork, increasing productivity, and increased customer and employee satisfaction. So this is actually a great slide to counter and compare against the last slide, the two opposites, before and after. So right now, I actually just want to get your feedback on this. And Julie, if you can, could you go ahead and launch this poll? We want to get your feedback on this poll question. So the question is, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing your business? Is it collaborating across functions, meeting productivity, revenue goals, making processes more efficient, centralizing data collection, reporting with real time? Okay, so it looks like there's a clear winner here, Steve, and I'm going to have you jump in and kind of analyze the results of this live poll. But it looks like making processes more efficient is the clear winner here, and everything else is distant fourth at 11%. So, Steve, if you can, let's get your thoughts.
Well, I wrote down my two responses. One of them was making processes more efficient. The other one was real-time reporting of data. I'm a little kind of funky here on all of them are 11% except for the winner. Never seen that before. You sure this isn't rigged?
No, not rigged. Fair election here, and I find that fascinating. So making processes more efficient, they're going to love some of what we're going to show here later on, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Julie, yes, please go ahead and close that out, and then we'll keep moving on. So this is the second question. What makes Macola different? So Macola recently won an award from Frost & Sullivan for product leadership in ERP. When describing Macola, Frost & Sullivan mentioned things like complete functionality and highly scalable, personalized workspaces, role-specific views. They also said it's integrated and scalable. These are kind words, and this is an award we're proud of. Thanks, Frost & Sullivan. We appreciate it. Let's take a look at what makes Macola different. And we like to say these elements here, from all-inclusive value to flexible purchase options. Let's take a closer look here with all-inclusive value. From manufacturing and project management to distribution, quality management, accounting and finance, human resources management, and CRM, these are just a few of the functions that you can get with Macola 10. In fact, you may want all of them, or you may only need a few at the beginning. But either way, you can start with the ones you're ready for now and grow into the rest later at no additional cost. Macola 10 is ready to help you grow. And from manufacturing to customer relationship management and everything in between, these are just a few of the features and functionality that Macola can help you with. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but you can see that it is has a breadth and functionality that is impressive. Wouldn't you say, Steve?
Sorry, I had myself on mute there. Yeah, we have a lot of different features people can take advantage of in here, whether it's in one particular functional area like accounting and finance, or even just down to customer service or customer relationship management. There's a lot of different features that people make use of on a regular basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I really like this quote. This is from the general manager of Solar Medical. And when comparing Macola's all-inclusive full functionality against other ERP providers who piecemeal modules together instead, he says Macola was an inclusive solution. It just had a lot more functionality, whereas some of the other solutions you could add on to them and get all the functionality of Macola, but they were more expensive. We think that's a great quote that talks about the all-inclusive value, and it's scalable and will help you grow. Thanks, Solar Medical. I appreciate the all-inclusive compliment. So here's a second poll. And Julie, let's kick this one off too. What core function of ERP does or could benefit your organization the most? Definitely a leader here. Okay, Julie, if you want, let's go ahead and close the poll and then show the results. And actually, Steve, it got real close there at the end. So the winner here is 38% manufacturing, shop floor control, quoting. Let me see. Second and third, distribution. Third is accounting and finance. Steve, what do you see from the results of this live poll?
Well, again, I grabbed two of them, and I kind of lean towards manufacturing as the top one, but both manufacturing and distribution are areas that Macola is very strong in, and interesting that accounting and finance is right up there at 24% also.
Yes, and we find that to be quite common, don't we, where people are really looking for a more robust accounting and finance functionality as well. Okay, Julie, thank you. Let's go ahead and close that one out. Back to what makes Macola different. Integration between business functions. And this could include integrating sales, support, purchasing, production, shipping, finance, and of course the C-suite with all of that. Macola can help break down the silos within your organization. Next up, configuration instead of customization. Macola is cost-effective with out-of-the-box configurability. Without the need for costly customizations, much of it can be configured. Automated workflows that increase efficiencies. They help you reduce manual effort and paperwork and improve visibility and control of enterprise processes. So what do we mean by automated workflows in this case? So I guess there's an example here of comparing a typical process with no or old ERP and one that has new ERP. So oftentimes companies have individual processes that aren't really processes at all, but rather a series of disjointed and disparate actions and tasks. They aren't connected, and they certainly cause pain points such as delays due to late paper filings, a mailbox that isn't being checked, time-consuming manual data entry or siloed data. So what we do first is organize and put these into a process. Next, once you organize these previously disjointed tasks, you can actually, with Macola, start replacing entire tasks. Some of these workflows can even reduce or eliminate multiple manual tasks. And this is just one example. So you can see how this could become very powerful. You can configure Macola to meet the needs of your specific workflows and the needs of your organization. This is a strength of Macola's automated workflows. And here's a great example of combining Macola with automated workflows. This is a quote from the director of IT at GL Mazzetta. And he says, speaking of these automated workflows, in one department, we dropped 4 hours every day on one task. And that's really just by using workflows and document management. That's amazing. What if Macola could help you eliminate 4 hours in every department every single day? And just think about that. So thanks, GL Mazzetta, for passing this along. Next up, personalizable views into the data that matters to you. It's personalizable, configurable, and it's the most important data that is configured to your specific needs on an individual role-based level. In fact, we have 42 out-of-the-box ready-made workspaces. That's just out of the box. You can take those, configure them. You can create your own. You can perform transactions, and there is a lot of configurability within Macola. Anytime, any device, from the desktop to the laptop to tablets on the shop floor, you can increase the speed of doing business with apps for smartphones and tablets, as well as browser-based applications. Take your data where you work. And last up, flexible purchase options, from perpetual to subscription, enterprise license agreement. Talk with one of our representatives, and we can see what might work best for you. So how can Macola help you? You know, each business function, each role has different responsibilities and with different needs. Macola addresses these different roles and responsibilities. Here are just a few of the different roles that Macola can help with. For example, the president may be looking to increase collaboration across business functions or to better manage the supply chain. The director of operations may be looking to optimize the shop floor and spot bottlenecks and redundancies. Macola can help with all of these. And speaking of spotting bottlenecks and redundancies, here's how one of our customers was able to eliminate a bottleneck for their company, which is in the metal fab industry. She said, it used to take us between 3 to 5 days to quote one of our larger jobs, and now we're down to half a day. They found the bottleneck, and with Macola significantly reduced the amount of time it took to quote orders. So thanks, Right Way Manufacturing. We appreciate you allowing us to share that. So here, I'm going to pass this off to Steve, and he's going to take us as we continue to take a closer look here at Macola 10.
Well, thank you, Nick. Today what we're going to end up doing is taking a walk through Macola 10 in a quote-to-cash process using one of the latest versions of Macola 10, which is 10.5.1, released on 6/30. We're going to end up working with an opportunity, turning that opportunity possibly into a quote, quote to order, order to production, and end up shipping that product out, invoicing it, and receiving cash hopefully for it at the end of the day. We're going to end up doing that through what would be a role-based interface where we're going to step through different people's jobs and assume their roles as we're doing those functions. We're going to end up starting off as Ron Calley in our system, and Ron's going to work with a sales opportunity. He may end up processing that opportunity, turning into a quote, and that quote may in turn be promoted to an order in the field, or it may be promoted to the order through Robin and sales support. But when that happens, it should be able to notify her that she has a quote that needs to be promoted. She in turn receives that quote, processes the sales order out of it. She may end up printing pick tickets, but once that order's in the system, it ends up notifying everybody that needs to know that we have a rush order or a hot order in the system. She ends up printing that pick ticket. Maybe our gentleman Jack there in purchasing reviews what he needs for that particular order. He could automatically create a purchase order for it, have that purchase order released, and receive the product. In our production department, we can have Bruce. He gets notification that he's got an order that needs to be pushed through the system. He sees that it's automatically created, ends up confirming inventory, releases that order, and reports production to that order to the shipping department, rolls it down to shipping. Shipping reviews the shipping schedule, sees that order needs to be shipped out, processes that shipment, and a trigger may notify finance that we need to do billing on this. So Joe in finance will end up billing the product out, hopefully receiving cash shortly after that, and our CEO would end up reviewing the KPIs and the results of all of that. So step by step, that's the path we're going to take through the system, sort of utilizing all the different functional areas. So with that said, we're going to go basically directly into Macola 10 at this point. Okay. So we're going to assume the role of this gentleman in the upper right there called Ron Calley, and he may be at his hotel and looking at his laptop, and he's going to head on down to breakfast and possibly get something to eat. So he might close the laptop and switch over to something that's maybe a little bit more mobile for him, and he'll end up opening up his iPad and getting into his iPad and basically seeing the same kind of screens that he was seeing as he's using his laptop. So I'm sitting here with my iPad right now, and he may end up going and checking what his tasks are for the day. So we're going to end up going over to his, let's see, we'll go over to his planning calendar and see what he's got scheduled for the day. So I'm just going to go into planning. We'll take a look and see what my calendar looks like. And today is Wednesday, August 16th, so I'll go and just click on that orange button that's got a highlight there for August 16th. And I can see that I have a sales call that I need to do, and that sales call is with Dove Equipment. I need to go visit Javier Cabrera, specifically about a certain series of air compressors. You can see I've got the item tied to it. And we also have a sales opportunity that I've got configured into this workflow also. And that's the opportunity 123. Now, finance likes me to track all of the sales of these things in a project, so we've also tied a project to it. Now, if I go and hit the hyperlink here for the sales opportunity, I'll go and see, basically what the status is of that opportunity, be able to drill into it and see it's a $30,000 opportunity with a 90% chance of closure. So I'm looking at about $27,000 to be out there and outstanding for it. Is involving Dove Equipment with Javier. And I could go and take a look and see if I have any documents that are related to it. It can contain documents within the opportunity, and those documents might be a sales order or a fact sheet that I may have sent to him in the past. But the opportunity is triggered off of workflows, and as the workflows process through, I can see I'm at stage 4 contract negotiations right at the moment. If I drill into that contract negotiations workflow to see where we're at with stage 4, I should be able to surface kind of what the status is of it. So I can see detail about where we've been. We've done a demonstration for them. We've gotten a quote out to them. And for today's notes, it's I need to push this when I get out there and have a sales call with Dove Equipment Corporation. I really need to move this along. But if I wanted to see the entire process flow of how this worked from beginning towards the end where we're in contract negotiations, I can click on process flow, and you can see the first 3 steps of the sales cycle, qualification, needs analysis, and demonstration, are completed. We're in contract negotiations and hopeful towards the close of sale. Now, I may end up being at his particular site, and maybe he'd like to have an order put in for this or a quote put in for it, and if we can get him a quote while I'm there, maybe he can get me a purchase order right there for it. So I'm going to hop over to some of the new screens that are here in Macola 10, and we can take a look at either entering an order or looking up an order from here, or we can go to maybe an item snapshot and be able to look up detail about a particular item in inventory. We ought to be able to search for whether we have any on hand, or whether I have them available that I can actually put them on this order. So as I'm bringing that up, I'm going to end up selecting what division that I'm involved with. I'm going to enter an order item number for it, and then I should be able to surface this. So here I've got my division, and I might start looking for a particular item that he was interested in. Could be a bike AS. And as that loads up, I can then in turn pick that item and be able to look at, what I've got in the way of inventory for that particular item. I can turn this around and get to different spots on it. So I'm going to hop over and put in a quote for this particular customer. So We're going to end up doing a quote for that opportunity that we saw. I'm going to bring up customer number 2033 and be able to surface that. There we go. So Dove Equipment Corporation, and we're going to end up putting this in as a quotation. And you have the fields here that you see in the header information of the ship date, any purchase orders that might be involved, the locations that they're coming from, the salesperson that's involved. You can split the commission out to 3 different salespeople if you'd like. And I'm going to end up putting in an SLE series of air compressors on here. So we'll grab this 30 horsepower scroll compressor. And it fills in the detail of it. And I'm going to leave this that the order date, the requested ship date, the promise date are all today. That in turn will end up triggering an event that will notify people in the company that we have a rush order that's going through. So I'll end up adding this to the sales order. And that is a quotation. And I'm going to submit that quotation. And I've basically got it on hand. Now, with automation, once I've submitted this, behind the scenes, it can actually email that quote to the customer directly. I could end up emailing it for him or just reviewing it in front of him. But that order or quote has been created, and we're now going to go into that particular customer and see if we can surface that quote. Now it's quote number 236 is the one that we're dealing with here, and I can in turn can take that and open that quote up and be able to get it to maybe convert it to an order if I've gotten a purchase order from him at that point. So we're going to take this order 236, and we're going to end up converting this to a sales order from my iPad. And that in turn will create a sales order and start to notify people in the company that, we've got a rush order that needs to be processed. So as we do that, we'd end up going back over. It will create that sales order in the system, and he may be done with this particular task that he has, and he's headed off and on the road. So he may end up logging off of his iPad, and maybe he'll go out in his car and be on the road going to see other clients. Now, with that said, I'm going to switch over to another application. I'm going to switch over to what I have on my smartphone, and that'll enable me to be able to get into the Macola 10 mobile app, and maybe I can take a look and see. I've run a little bit short on my call for Dove Equipment, and maybe I want to see if we have some other customers that are in the area here that I could end up seeing while I've got a free half hour or hour. So I could end up looking from here and going to this mobile app, going to the proximity locator, and it'll identify where my phone is in the country. And right now it's picking out North Jersey for the location where I'm at there with the blue dot, and it's showing me that I have 2 customers in the area. One's Marlowe Manufacturing, and the other is Joe's Hot Dog Shop or John's Hot Dog Shop, and maybe I can go see Marlowe and see if they're available. So I'll drill into Marlowe and be able to get some mapping information for directions on that. I could go and look at my contacts over there and see if I can reach out to Tony at Marlowe, get his phone number, and dial it right from this application by clicking on the phone link there. And I could go and see what Tony might need for a visit. So I am able to do a variety of things from here. It's a little easier at the larger screen of an iPad or a tablet to be able to enter sales orders. But you can get to a variety of accounts that you have here. You'd be able to drill into each one of your accounts. You'd be able to also go and take a look at what might be incoming workflow or tasks that you need to complete. So as we go and take a look at my incoming workflow, you can see there's that stage 4 contract negotiations that we were just working with Dove Equipment. We do have a PTO request out there, and you can see the sales call below that is what I'm doing with Dove Equipment this morning. And I can drill into that same information directly from here. So we go into the sales call from here, you'll see basically the same types of links that we saw on the iPad as we're looking at a air compressor opportunity tied to project compressor sales for a particular item in inventory and what their interests may be. And we may have attachments to this. We've quoted them, so we can have an attachment to it from the quote. Now I can look up items in inventory from here also, so if I wanted to maybe do an inquiry of a particular item in stock, I could go and take a look at maybe bike AS again and have it surface the information as to what I have at what warehouse and what location. So I can see I got 957 of them at my Massachusetts location and 969 in my California location. So I can use the mobile app on my phone to do a lot of the simple tasks back and forth that you do, on a day-to-day basis. You can also go and take a look at, what might be workspaces that are attached. So I do have a mobile sales dashboard here, and if I take this and kind of twist it a little bit, I can get to see what I'd like to see on it. I have sales year over year, maybe what my previous day's sales were, if I have any past due quotations that are out there, and again, what customers are hitting the highest as far as revenue year to date. So all of that's available on the mobile devices back and forth. Then we'll end up going over to Macola 10 and kind of completing this whole quote to cash process. So with that said, Robin Smith is our employee who's in sales support, and as we log into Robin Smith, she may be able to get a heads-up idea that she's got a rush order that's been put in place, and we can go take a look at that order in the system. Customers for 2033 here, and we can go and take a look at their orders and be able to see we've got orders that are in the system for them. Bringing up one of these orders, we can see it's for, an SLE series of air compressors. So in turn, I might print an acknowledgement to send to the customer, although that can be automated. I might print my pick tickets from here, and when I do these, it starts to notify people in the company that we're pushing an order through the system rather quickly. So she's done her part and printed off the pick ticket and the acknowledgement to the customer. If I was somebody in purchasing and walking in for the day, I may log in as Jack in purchasing here. And as we get in as Jack, he may get a heads-up alert that there's a rush order that was just put in. I could drill into that rush order and be able to see the details of it. So I can see, we've got an order for Dove equipment. I drill to the order itself. I can see it's for the scroll compressors. And Jack's responsibility here is to be able to get material in for these jobs that are being pushed through production. So in the evening, MRP may have run, and Jack's aware of that. So he's going to go take a look at what MRP has suggested that he release in the way of purchase orders. And we're going to filter this basically on the series of air compressors that we've just gotten a sales order. So it's a TS series of air compressors. And MRP has suggested that he's going to be short 13 parts, 6 of one, 6 of another, and 1 piece of an assembly kit that needs to go with this particular order. We're going to say, yep, I know what that's all about. I'll select all of these and see if the system will create a purchase order automatically for me. So it'll go through and stage those items up to have a PO created. As I step out of this, it's going to ask, do I want that to do it? And I'm going to say, yep, I want to have a PO created for those particular items, and it will go off and do that for me. Now, with that said, it is a unreleased PO. There is a human intervention to it, so I'm going to go into my purchase orders and take a look at the purchase order that it just created for me. And it should be the highest purchase order number, so I'll reverse and sort it. Here is an unreleased purchase order for Shimani Corporation. If I drill into it, I can see that the items that are on there are the 6 pieces, and 1 piece of the product that it was recommending for me to order. And I might at this point say I'll release this order, save it, and as I step out of it, it's going to want to print that purchase order. And printing the purchase order is kind of the final step to actually being able to receive it. It creates, a valid PO when you've printed it. So we'll see a printout of this here, and then we'll go and receive the product in so we can go and build it and get it out the door. So there's our purchase order. As I step out, it's going to ask me, did it print correctly? And that kind of flips the flag that it's a valid purchase order and I can receive against it. And I'll end up going to the receiving module that Jack's got on his desktop here, and this may be a shipping function, but we'll keep it all in purchasing for the moment. And that particular purchase order, again being the highest number, 565, and I can see that we've got 6, and 1. I got 13 parts that have come in, so I'm going to receive these all as ordered. So it's going to let me receive all of the items just as they were on the purchase order. Now I can put in some packing slip information, carrier name, freight bill, those kind of things. But it'll step through lines 1, 2, 3. You could have 100 lines on this purchase order, and it's going to end up receiving them all automatically for you. So Jack's kind of done his part, and he's got the product coming in for this particular build. And the next person who would have gotten notification would have been Bruce in our production department. So I'm going to go and assume Bruce's role as production manager. And we'll see his face shows up in the upper right up there, and his desktop may look a little bit different. He's got kind of what he needs to be able to complete production. You can see he does have this rush heads up alert that an order just came in, so he's been notified that there's an order that's being pushed through the system. If he drills into that and sees it's for an SLE series of air compressors, he knows that that particular item will automatically create production orders for him, so we should be able to go and look at the production orders that are in the system for Bruce, and be able to see, what is out there. So here is an unreleased production order, number 422, for the SLE series of air compressors, and we in turn will drill into that. I can see it's tied to that particular customer in the order that we put in. I'm going to end up releasing this order, and it'll ask me if I want to print the production work orders and things like that for it, and we'll just let that do that. And that in turn will release the order and get the product to be pulled out of the warehouse, being all of the components that we just ordered through purchasing, and you may have your work instructions here as to how to assemble it. This is a lightweight manufacturing feature. We're using production order processing to be able to manufacture this compressor because it's basically an assembly. We do have a shop floor functionality that will allow you to build a much more complex manufactured item. For this example, we're going to be doing this in what's called POP, which is production order process. Now, when I go to report production on order number 422, I have the ability to be able to either have labor tied to the bill of material that's related to it, or in this example, I'm going to kind of put labor in on the fly. So as I'm prepared to report production on this, I'm going to go and add a little bit of value-added cost to this. And the type of cost that I'm going to add is assembly labor and overhead, and we'll put some type of a factor of here how much time was spent on it, and I basically just pegged a certain amount of labor and overhead to this build, and I'm going to say the order is complete and hit save. When I hit save, this is a lotted item, so it's going to come up with a unique lot number for the product that we're building, and this one happens to be number 231 is what we're building here. So I tab through this and say okay, it then puts that item into inventory. Now, that item was created from a sales order, and it created a purchase order, a production order automatically for it, so it's tied to the sales order, and in fact will then update the quantity that needs to ship, or the quantity to ship field in the sales order, and allow it to get that out. So we're going to step out of production. Bruce is going to roll this compressor down to the shipping department, and we're going to log in as somebody from shipping, and just going to process the order through as the shipping clerk here, Peter Bailey. So as we get in as Peter Bailey, he has a desktop that, he may keep track of things like the incoming rush order that we see here, but probably the tool he might use the most is this report that's called the shipping lineup. And if I open this up, this may be all he needs to have on one particular monitor is a report like this that shows them all the orders that need to go out of the building and their order dates that they need to ship by and the details of them. Now, I've got a lot of orders in this system, so if I want to refine this down to something that was maybe today and today only, let's grab today being the 16th and end date being the 16th and refresh this report. And I'm looking for order number 1071 here now. 1071 is a sales order that's been booked for Dove Equipment Corporation. It's going to ship ground. It's for an SLE series of compressors, and it was built on shop order 422, and you can see it did update the quantity to ship in it. Now, I can do a variety of functions from here. In my system here, I have this set up to confirm ship so that when I actually ship the product, it relieves it out of inventory, whereas I could have had that relief out of inventory done when it was being invoiced. So I have the ability to confirm ship from here. I can print my packing slips, my bill of lading, any types of forms that might need to go with it. And in this example, we're going to move right to confirm ship. So we're going to tell the system that we're shipping this product today, and it's going to ask, are we shipping everything on it? We are shipping everything on that order for today's date, and it's now brought up that serial number 231 that we were dealing with, and I'm just going to validate that that is the one that I want. As I step out of it, it has identified that and brought it into the order as something that we're shipping. As I step out of it, I could add, maybe some freight charges to this, or a handling fee that be related. And notice we're starting to calculate commissions here, starting to calculate weight of product. And as we hit save, he's done his part, and that should have shipped out. And as he looks at this report and it refreshes, that particular order should have changed from a booked stage to a confirmed ship stage, which is what we're seeing here. And when it does that, we've got this set up to automatically trigger a workflow to let finance know that, we've just shipped out order number 1071, and that in turn can be billed. So as we log in as somebody from finance, we should see that notification in his workflow. This is fine if you're doing a few orders a day. You have large orders. If you're processing 500 orders a day, you might want a different type of notification. But in this example, we build a couple of compressors a day, and it's easy to manage a rush order like this using those features. So as I log in as Joe Whitemore here, we're going to end up seeing his desktop, and you can see he's got a notification down here of the heads up alert that there's a rush order been put in, and we also have a notification that the order has been shipped and needs to be billed out. So he'd end up going up to the billing function. Now this may end up in finance, or it may end up in customer service. It's personal choice business process wise as far as who's doing this. So we're going to end up entering 1071 as the order that we're going to select for billing, and that particular order we start saying we'll bill everything on it for this date, and there are the information that the shipping clerk has put in for the shipping rates and the miscellaneous charge. We do see the commission that was in here before. We also see it start calculating taxation. So I start to get a better view of, how the whole invoice is actually going to look from this screen. So I step out of this. We've completed that particular function. I'm going to end up printing the invoice for it. That'll be 1071. And you can print these in groups, but we're going to process this one at a time today. Now this forms that it's bringing up are highly configurable, so if you want your logos on them, you want terms and conditions on them, that's easy to put into these forms. They're, as I mentioned, they're configurable. Now this invoice, I'd probably have the automation system pick up and send it to the customer automatically, but I could actually export it and put it out to a disk file, or I can send it via email directly from this application. So I step out of this, much like the purchasing confirmation. It's going to ask me, did it print correctly? This is your last chance to review this and make sure it's correct before it posts to the general ledger. So I'm going to say, yes, that printed fine, and we'll head back over as Joe, and we're going to end up posting the invoices that he's got outstanding for this. So invoice posting can be done on a one-by-one basis, or it can be done, with a whole group of them all at once. So I'm just going to say OK to this, and we're going to end up posting that invoice. So we ought to see 1071 pop up there in the window as it's posting these invoices to the general ledger. Now, when that has completed, it's going to rush the process a little bit here in our demonstration, but a week or two or four later, you're going to end up receiving cash on this. and then we'll match the cash to the actual invoice at hand. So in this, we're going to kind of rush the process and assume we're getting paid right away for it. I'll end up receiving cash, and I'm going to select a new cash entry, and we get to choose what bank account. If you have multiple accounts, you can have this also default. But here we're going to pick Bank 1 as the bank that we're receiving this into. And we're got a check here for about $29,000. I think it covers a little bit more than the actual invoice was, and it's check number blah, blah, blah. Today's deposit number will be 8/16/2017. I like to use a reference to the date, and you can put that in as the same here for the date of the deposit, and we're going to tie this to customer 2033, which is Dove Equipment Corporation. So that in turn journalizes that $29,000 as a cash receipt, and at this point we're going to match this to a particular invoice. So click the match button in the center of the screen. It's going to bring me up a matching screen. On the left are the credits or the checks that have been sent in. It's highlighted the $29,000 one already, and we can go down and grab one of the invoices that are down here for a scroll compressor that we've built out and ask it to match and process. Now be aware that I have overpaid by $260 here, so as I hit match and process, it's going to want to know, what do you want to do with the balance? Do you want to write it off to a payment difference account? Do you want to refund it? Do you want to put it into a different GL or just leave it as a prepayment on the account? I'm going to leave it as a prepayment on the account. We should see the check and that invoice disappear. They have been matched, and it of course left the balance as a prepayment on the account for them. So we've in turn received everything that we needed to do as far as cash and matching at this point. And as I step out of this, we'll go back to Joe's desktop. Now, all of that's completed. We've kind of run the cash, quote to cash process through the system, seen purchasing, manufacturing, shipping at work. And at this point, we're going to log off as Joe, and maybe the CEO, Glenn, is checking to see how things are doing for the day. So we're going to log in here. I've got a tile called Executive, and we'll assume the role of Glenn Weissman, and his desktop may have an executive scorecard or some information about sales year over year here, view of his control accounts. These all populate in front of us. And from this, we can start to look at things. So we can see we've had a previous day sale here of $27,000, and our month to date just went up by the transaction that we just processed. Everything's live. So when we're taking a look at these things, we're seeing live to the moment what has come into inventory, what has gone out in the way of sales orders and invoices, and whatever information that you happen to need can be kind of right up here and in front of you. So one of the things that's nice about workspaces is that they're actionable. If I look at something like this projected order revenue of $54,000, I can actually drill into that and be able to take maybe a deeper look at what that $54,000 is all about. So that ends up opening up what might be a sales dashboard where I can see the $54,000. I can drill into the detail of that order. I can see maybe how my sales reps are doing. And then again, Dove Equipment, who we just invoiced that order to, I can see they are my top customer. So if I wanted to, I could drill into them. I could Google that account from here to see maybe a little bit more history about them or understand what their business is like. Or I can run a customer snapshot, which will give me detail about how that customer is doing with my business. So I click on Customer Snapshot. Again, we can go a little bit deeper, and we can see that their year-to-date sales is a little over $1 million. Last year they did $685. I've got some detail of gross profit percentages. I can see they owe us around $169,000, and their average dates to pay is 60 days. They have bought a lot of these scroll compressors from us. They bought 43 of them. And I can see a view of all the open orders that they have in the system here and drill into those if I wanted to look to see what those were all about. I can also see notes that are put on here by maybe people in my sales department or shipping department. So order 821 has a note attached to it, and if I hover over it, it'll say, hold this shipment. We're sending an updated ship to address. So you can use some of the tools inside of here to provide communication from one department to another related to orders, and it becomes visible all the way up to the CEO if you wanted that to have that type of depth. So as I step out of this, I want to say one thing is that all of the tools that we've seen here on the CEO side, or for that matter, most everything that we've shown here, could be visible from, again, an iPad or a tablet type device without issue. And from there, I'm going to turn it back over to Nick and Julie. This concludes our walkthrough with the quote-to-cash process. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you there, Steve. Appreciate that walkthrough. And I actually just want to wrap this up here with a few parting thoughts. So how can Macola help you? Well, it's, again, a single solution with all-inclusive value, anywhere web and mobile access, configuration instead of customization, and I think Steve pointed out many places where you could configure the data, the screen, to what you need, increased efficiencies with automated workflows, flexible purchase options, and personalizable views into the data that matters the most to you. So for additional information here, just please visit Macola.com. We have all kinds of resources there, ebooks, infographics, customer success stories, YouTube for videos. There's additional product information. We'll be sending a follow-up email afterwards with the link to view the on-demand, or if you want, you could forward it to a colleague as well. And then we'll have a post-demo survey and like to get your feedback. Now, with that said, let's open this up for a little Q&A here. And we'll see, Julie, if we have any questions posted.
Sure. Yeah. Let's take a look. We've got a few. The first one is, how is the synchronization handled for customers and vendors for an organization that has multiple sites as legal entities?
Okay. Well, Nick, if you want to take that one, you can. Otherwise, I'll chime in.
Go for it, Steve.
Okay, with multiple back office divisions, in other words, separate legal entities, you can share customers across them. You can share vendors across the, let's say, 4 divisions, or you can keep them separate from each other. So somebody like the electric company might be in common across all 4 divisions, and you'd want that to be a shared account number 1000. When you're creating individual accounts, it's all created in the web environment where we were looking at Dove Equipment Corporation, and there's areas where you can designate what back office they're actually related to, or whether they're related to all 4. Now, the answer about synchronization, synchronization was a word that was used a few years ago with our Macola product, but development has put in a beautiful tool to be able to automatically write the customer and vendor information immediately to each one of the back office databases. So there really isn't a synchronization to speak of anymore. It's just, how do you handle accounts that might be shared across divisions, or accounts that are unique to one.
Okay. Let me see. Julie, thank you, Steve. Julie, is there another one?
Yeah, we probably have time maybe for one more. What tools are available to help me become and maintain ISO certifications?
Well, that's a really good question. I am a ISO certified auditor, and I've built in many of the companies I've been involved with, employed by, and then again with Exact, I've built ISO tools out of the workflow and workspaces and document management system in Macola 10, so that you can kick off an ISO audit on a particular section of an ISO standard and be able to track your audit results and whether they've passed and whether they failed inside of a workflow, which in turn can be reported back out in paper or on the screen if you want to have some bar charts and graphs about how you're doing with it. But the really powerful point is that when you do show this to somebody who's auditing you, you have all of the results of all of your internal audits are visible and rapid access and clear visibility as as to who was responsible, who was involved, what you passed for, what you failed for, and what you did to improve that situation.
Well, thank you, Steve. Hopefully that answered the question there. Very thorough. And Julie, looks like we're actually getting a lot more questions coming in here. And maybe I think for lack of time, we'll connect. Let's reach out to you who've posted these, and we want to connect with you personally and try to answer your questions here if we haven't gotten to it today. With that said, Julie, let's just close this out and let people go on to their next meeting today.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks again to our presenters, and thank you again to everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, please contact Nick at nick.mears, M-E-A-R-S, @exact.com. And like Nick said, we'll also be following up for those of you who submitted questions that we weren't able to answer on the webinar. And once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the demo. We greatly appreciate it if you'd share your feedback with us. And just as a reminder, we'll be emailing a link to view the recording of today's webinar. You'll receive that tomorrow. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.